Now let's look at flavours in white wine. The way we break up flavour is we look at fruit flavour and floral, herb and spice. Firstly, we'll look at fruits. Basically, when we're looking at white wine, there's like a ripeness spectrum. I will say that all white wine will have some form of citrus. So you've got to work out whether it's fresh and zippy like a lime, or juicy like a lemon, or sort of bitter and full like a grapefruit. You with me on that? Then the spectrum works like this, the ripeness spectrum I'm talking about. It goes from green fruit through to stone fruit, through to tropical fruit. When we're looking at this sort of ripeness spectrum, what I want you to think about is you take a sip and all of the sweetness on the wine sits in the middle of the palate, right in the middle of your tongue. Okay, I want you to focus in on that sweetness and I want you to assess whether the sweetness is underripe, like a green apple, or overripe, like a mango, if you will, okay? Or if it's somewhere in between. And you work out where it sits on the spectrum. If it's underripe, and you think, okay, it might be in the green fruit spectrum, then each category has its own ripeness spectrum. So if we're looking at green fruits, is it green and underripe like a Granny Smith apple? Or is it ripe green like a Nashi pear? Or is it in the stone fruit section and it's white nectarine, underripe, or apricot yellow peach as overripe? Does that make sense? So we're looking at not only in the green, stone, and tropical, but then we go green apple, pear, Nashi pear. Cool? Sometimes you might find that it sits somewhere in between. We might taste this wine and go, it's underripe, but it's not like really underripe. It might be Nashi pear, white nectarine. So it might sit between the two. And I'm happy for you to kind of write down maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 sort of fruit flavors when you're marking it on your sheet. So we go citrus, write down what kind of citrus it is, and then I want you to focus in on how ripe or underripe it is. The way I approach it is I start with my cluster. I go, okay, it's green fruited, and then I work out, is it Granny Smith or is it pear? So have a sip, focus in the middle of your palate and work out whether it's ripe or underripe. So that's how you assess fruit flavors in white wine. When we're looking at floral, herb and spice, we're looking at kind of in and around that fruit sweetness. So if the fruit sweetness is in the middle of your palate, right in the middle of your tongue, all the floral, herb and spice flavors are as that fruit flavor comes up onto your palate and then as it drifts away. So we're looking at bitterness, we're looking at sourness, we're looking at saltiness, all of these sort of flavors that play out in your palate. Now I will preface that this is a really hard section to get right. This is a really hard section to find things in, and if you haven't been drinking a lot of wine with a lot of people that drink a lot of wine, sometimes this stuff can be hard to find. So don't beat yourself up if you can't find it. What I want you to do is actually use your little tips and tricks booklet. In the back, there's a really great description of every floral, herb and spice section, and it kind of describes where you might find it on your palate. For example, you might find a bit of underripeness towards the back of your palate as that fruit sweetness drops away and you get a little bit of bitterness or herbaceousness as those sort of like tomato leaf or capsicum qualities come across. A question I get asked often is, how do you taste capsicum or asparagus in wine? We're not tasting exactly asparagus. What we're tasting is the quality of asparagus. What I want you to think about is, what's it like to eat a piece of asparagus? It's crunchy, there's a little bit of like earthy bitterness, it makes your mouth water, there's a bit of salinity, there's kind of like crunchy freshness. Those qualities are what makes it taste like asparagus. Is it green in flavor? Is it kind of like an earthy vegetal flavor? Things like bitterness can be found in peas, can be found in cabbage, those kind of qualities that you'll see in and around the back end of wine, okay? Have a go, write down 1, maybe 2 that you can find in this space. I will note that floral is typically just on the nose, okay? That's floral, herb and spice, and that's how we assess flavor in white wine.